Hey Harvest, we are continuing our study of James, and I just love how practical this book is, how it's so applicable to our lives. This passage is no different. Chapter 1, starting at verse 5, he says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him." It's just straightforward. Now we know there's a condition that's coming in the next verses, but this passage reminds me so much of, probably one of the more famous things about King Solomon, ancient king of Israel. When he became king, one of the first things he did is he asked God for wisdom in order to do his job. 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 9 says, "Give your servant therefore an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this your great people?" He is feeling the enormity of his responsibility and all the decisions that he's going to have to make. And, because we're in similar kinds of things where we have to make decisions and we need wisdom. We need wisdom as parents, in our child rearing. It's like, okay, what should I do with this situation with my kids? Should I go that way or should I go that way? I need answers. I need help. We need wisdom. We need wisdom in our business decisions that we have to make in work, and we need decisions in school that we have to make. We need wisdom relative to relationships. We need wisdom related to our finances. How and where and when and on what should we spend our money? Those are all questions of wisdom. Now, take finance, for example. A lot of people have received stimulus checks from the federal government or are in the process of receiving those. What should you do with that money? I think that's a question of wisdom. It's not a question of one size fits all, right for all people. It's a question of, how do I apply the truth of God into this situation that I'm in with this money? Because some people are having difficulty even meeting their most basic needs. They need to buy food. They need to pay for shelter. Other people might be in a situation where it's an opportunity to pay down some debt that is really pressing down on you, or maybe to save some money that you haven't been able to save for that safety net that you need in your bank account. And then others, maybe it's a complete windfall. You don't need the money, and maybe God's calling you to be extra generous with it and give it away to your church, to a charity, to a soup kitchen, a food pantry, to give it to an individual or to support a local business. All of those are questions of wisdom. God, what should I do? What do you want me to do with this money? Now, like I said, there's an important condition in verse 6. He says, "But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that's driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways." So the important condition on this request for wisdom is that we are to have faith and not doubt. To have faith and not doubt. Now, faith is described in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. "Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." And then verse 6, "And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him." So, in other words, it's okay, do you believe that God exists? And then I think another important question of faith is, do you believe that God's way is the best way? Do you believe that God's way is the best way? And he describes in verse 6 what this doubting person is like. He says, like a wave of the sea that's driven and tossed by the sea. That's how waves are generated. It's just the prevailing winds push those waves along. And then if the winds change, the waves change directions too? Does that describe your life where it's like, okay, I'm being pushed this way and then I'm being pushed that way? This force comes into my life and that's the thing that drives me in a direction, or is it driving in another direction? Or are you saying that, okay, I'm not going to let the things around me or the opinions of people around me decide what the right way for me to go is. I'm going to let God's way decide what's the right way for me. So God, what do you want me to do in this? That's, in other words, to say, God, what you want is not double-minded. I think a lot of times as Christians, we can be double-minded, where on the one hand, we say, yes, I am a Christian, I follow God, but on the other hand, we're looking to other things for the direction that we might need. Listen to the way in Proverbs chapter 2, he describes asking for wisdom. Verse 1, it says, my son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it like hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom from his mouth, come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. And then it just goes on just talking more and more about wisdom. But you can see how this is a person that's saying, okay, God, what you want and the direction that you want to go is what I want. That's the direction that I want to go. That is a heart that's oriented towards God. It's not double-minded, because I believe that God exists and I believe that his way is best. My problem is I don't know which way that is. So it goes back to verse 5. If you lack wisdom, let him ask, who gives generously to all without reproach. So brothers and sisters, where do you lack wisdom? Where do you need God's wisdom to direct you in the way you should go? And then number 2, are there areas where you're doubting? Are you saying, no, I'm not sure that is really what God wants is really going to be the best for me? I think those are 2 questions that we need to answer, and we should do it together. And I encourage you to ask one another and talk to one another about that and express, hey, okay, here's frankly where I'm doubting. This is where I'm struggling. Let other people know about that. It's not something to be ashamed of in a way that you hide. Let's be honest with one another and share it with one another. And I so look forward to sharing and talking to you guys and seeing you very soon.